Welcome to Anchor Moments. I'm Gina LeBenz, and I have my good friend Frank here with me. Frank Leutz, correct?
That's correct.
Say that.
Yeah.
I'm just used to calling you Frank. I wanted to make sure that I said that last name right. Yeah. Frank, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, where do you want to start?
I know.
Well, I was born in Frankfurt, Germany.
Really?
Came in this country in 1972.
Okay.
Grew up in New York City.
I hear that New York in there.
Yeah, and I had a wonderful mother that kept us straight, because in the 70s in New York, as many of you know, was a rough place.
Oh, yeah.
And slowly, little by little, inched my way on a jazz trombone, got me to the School of Music and Art, the Fame School.
Oh, really? From the Fame TV show back in the day?
Yeah, which was pretty cool. You know, I started taking music serious. Went to Hebrew School of the Arts, got scholarships there, and so I took off in this whole music direction and played with Tito Puente, Dizzy Gillespie, Lionel Hampton, Branford Marsalis, Carnegie Hall. I mean, my life was all music. And after all of that playing, got through school, and here comes college, and college wasn't really my thing, so I took a hard left and joined the Navy.
I didn't know you were in the military. I know a lot of things about Frank, but I do not know any of this backstory.
Yeah.
Wow, so you were in the Navy.
In the Navy. Was in the Persian Gulf doing minesweep operations.
Wow.
Based out of San Diego, did a whole world tour, which is really cool. And, you kind of, for me, it was working the left side of the brain and then working the right side.
Yeah, because that's a big difference being in the Navy and, playing at Carnegie Hall.
Yeah, of course, the military wanted me to play music and, march. And I decided, not to do that. That wasn't my thing, But got out of the military in San Diego. Didn't have much talent for skill set. Met my wife at the time, whose father was in the automotive business.
That's how you got into automotive?
A big shout out to my wife, Josephine, right?
Aww.
And so I started in the automotive industry with my father-in-law.
Okay.
And then in 1995, went into business. Opened my first garage, doing lots of things wrong by way of sort of not having a business model. Many of us can have the heart and passion, but slowly I got there, and we sold that in 2002-ish.
Okay.
And then opened up Desert Car Care, Chandler and Dobson. And since then, do a lot of work with ABC 15, do all the car care stuff. I do represent the industry with ASA, Automotive Service Association. And we have about 100,000 mechanics nationally, and I work with a lobbyist. So we're safe as an aftermarket by way of the information and the technology that we can receive and fix these cars properly. So that's in a nutshell. I mean, we can go deeper if you'd like, but that's in a nutshell. That's my gig.
That's your gig?
That's my gig.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Now, another thing that I don't know about you, Frank, is I don't know your special stories of when you have felt God's presence in your life.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about some of those special anchor moments?
Absolutely. I mean, there's many. I will tell you that growing up in the city during the time of the 1970s and 80s, there was a lot of drugs. As a kid, I would see heroin being shot up on the street, on a street corner. And, for a kid to witness that and see that, you have to envision a straight path. And sometimes as a kid, you just don't know that there is this bigger message coming through you. And so there are many occasions where I could have gone to a whole different path.
A whole different path.
We're talking about the crack cocaine scene in the early 80s in New York City was rough. A lot of guys and gals that I grew up with, they all wanted that fast life, that fast money. And so I always knew between my wonderful mother, who was a rock, who kept us straight, kept us organized, for me, not getting involved in that whole direction, that was a series of anchor moments. And then sometimes in life, we don't look at it as sometimes we don't know that this is a message that we're getting, you know, and you have to be grateful and thankful. And I think we can do a better job thanking the people in our life that sometimes we take for granted, right?
Right.
You know, so.
You know, I always talk about that. There are times in our life where sometimes we're called to be an angel for somebody, and we're called to be that hands and feet of Christ. And there are other times that, oh, thank God, he sends us some people to be his hands and feet and to help us during some of those times.
Yeah.
And so you've had some angels in your life, I take it?
Absolutely. And I think at the time, a lot of us, we don't know that, you know, I didn't grow up particularly religious, to be quite frank with you. And sometimes we don't know that this is actually an angel or a bigger voice that sends a message, you know, to us. So it's in hindsight, sometimes we reflect, and I think that enables us to grow more and get connected with God and have that faith and hope about what we're doing, you know. So later on in life, it's a different perspective, but I know we have a lot of youngsters out there that they may be at a crossroads and they're not sure. So I would say that in my time of a multitude of anchor moments, if you will, you have to gravitate to the best positive outlet that you can. And in hindsight, you realize, that was an angel. Or the people, like I said, that we take for granted. You know, we take for granted. We don't realize, it's funny how life works, that, you know, these things shouldn't be rearview mirror. And as we get older, we realize that it's the front mirror, that this person is actually helping, or the situation is working out because there's a bigger power, there's a bigger presence to that.
Exactly. And sometimes that's a place to start. For me, it was a place to start where I could look at times in my life that special coincidences happen where you think, gosh, what are the odds of that? You know, and be able to see that God was present there. But then with prayer, you can ask for God to show you signs for going on the right path in the future too. And that is really exciting, and it's been really helpful for me.
Yeah.
Where are some times that's happened to you?
Well, military for sure. You know, I was in the Navy, obviously, and doing minesweep operations with active gunboats, Iranian gunboats, and you know, you kick back in training, and you think about all these things that you're sort of technically prepared for, but in that moment, you do say a prayer to watch over not only yourself but your team and everyone else, and you pray for peace, honestly.
Yeah.
You know, isn't that the case? Like, we're set up in these positions, and sometimes we don't have an opportunity to pray beforehand because things just come so fast.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
You know, I think about the times growing up in New York where you can't plan or prepare for things that just happen, and all you have really is just to wish upon peace for whatever the situation you're in. Military, definitely. My music, for me, there was anxiety performing. So
really?
Absolutely, absolutely. There's always anxiety beforehand. You know, you practice and shed, and you know, you go through your instrument, and you think you know the song the best you can, and then you hit it, and you got to say, for me, it's all about the peace of what's happening, and then you're in the moment. That's it.
Right.
You're in
right.
it, and I think afterwards, part of my reflection is always to do with the gratitude, no matter what happens. No matter what happens, right? And then there's always a message. Not so much that we can do better, but there's a message that we had an opportunity to share things, and you know, that next opportunity we'll share even more. See, we beat ourselves up, I think. I think we beat ourselves up. I know I do at times, where we may have a message, and you know, sometimes we say, well, that wasn't done properly, or, you know.
If I could do it again, I would do it better.
And I don't think it's a matter of doing it better. I think it's just being in the moment and just throwing out the gratitude that you did your best. You did your best.
Can you give us a specific example of when that happened in your life?
Yeah, well, we adopted. That was a big deal for us.
Oh, I didn't. So you've adopted your children?
Well, my oldest is not adopted, but my youngest is adopted. And there was a tragedy in her family. She was 3 years old, and the state was going to take the child. And my wife and I said, you know, we're not going to have that. So CPS came in and interviewed, and throughout that whole process, I was really reflecting and praying that the outcome for this child would be the best. I mean, obviously, we wanted to be the parents.
Well,
we wanted to have that. But it was really just no matter what happened in that moment, that everything would work out with this 3-year-old who's now my daughter. She's 10 now, my little Natalie. So.
Wow. Yeah. And see, I didn't know that either, that you had adopted.
Wow. And to us, my wife and I both, you could look at every day as a challenge of new things in a new arena, but to me, it's a blessing. I think it's the eyes that we have that we need to look at these things a little differently. And I think we have a tendency to, when we're on the top, that's when things are good, and that's how we sort of feel like we're blessed. I mean, that's good, but it doesn't count. It's when we're on the bottom, or when we have some adversity, that's where it counts. I think that's where the message counts. You know, I was hiking recently, and I thought to myself, you know, I'm going to do a Facebook Live and talk about I had an ankle issue recently, broke the ankle, and I was out for quite some time, a lot of pain and all this kind of stuff. And I thought to myself, you know, when we're on the bottom, that's where we see things a lot clearer. That's where we see the opportunity, right? And that's when so I'm not saying we stay on the bottom, but I think that's where we really got to focus, where some would say, I can't get out of this hole, or I can't get out of this particular tragedy, or this particular illness, or an opportunity that didn't work out for us. We have a tendency to just kind of put that cloud over us, and it's this negative situation, and I think we should take a deep breath and reverse that, because that's where the opportunities truly lie. Time also plays with us. We give up because we thought, okay, this should be happening now, or a week later, this should be happening now. I should be healing now, but I'm not. I should have this opportunity at work, or, you know, the business that I have should be evolving, and it's not. And we say, it's time, right? It's this time, and I think time can work against us. And I think we should understand every day is a new day, and a new day of opportunity, and not let time is perception. We're basing time on somebody else's. Well, they did it within this time frame. How can I? Or they got better and they healed up, and how come I'm not? You know, I think time really can, for me, sometimes it can be an enemy of mine, is time.
Right.
You know?
But sometimes that's where you can find gratitude. If you could, and it'll help pull you out of that hole.
That's all we have, really.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I mean, if we're not grateful about whatever situations, and it's not easy.
No.
Some of us are in some deep situations.
So you were telling us that you used to have 4?
Well, at one time I had 3 locations with
okay.
Desert Car Care, and sold 2 of those. And you know, throughout the whole process, I think the biggest thing with business is you're building teams and culture. And you know, as long as you're providing value in the community, this is what I tell a lot of other shop owners across the country, that you know, you can do the typical marketing, that is sort of these coupons, or you can slowly etch out what is your business, a vessel in the community. A vessel in the community. And look, business is business, and there are objectives, and you've got to stay on top of those. But the story of my first business, when I started, 1995, I had 18-hour days. I missed the first 3 years of my daughter's life because I was working, had no concept of, systems and procedures and policies and delegating and building a culture where, you let the good people that you surround yourself with do the good things that they can do. And so I know we have a lot of younger entrepreneurs out there, because what I see now, which I think is dangerous, is this sort of overnight success kind of thing, where people are preaching that by this system and overnight this is going to happen, and it's not the case. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and passion. You got to remember why it is you're doing what you're doing, and as long as you're connected to that, I don't think there's anything that you cannot do. If you give up on the thing that you like, the passion and drive for what you like, it's time to move on. Otherwise, you can't fake it. You really can't. And, so there have been many occasions. I had my first business when I sold that, we had grown it from a very small garage. And of course, I made a lot of mistakes. Essentially, I thought I was going to be the cheapest guy in town, and that was how I was going to build my business. And, you want a fair price, but that fair price should include what sustains
keeps the lights on.
A profit, paying good people so that they stick around. And so, it was a bloody mess, and it was very rough. But as time went on, it's amazing how pain of not being able to pay your bills, pain of owing, taxes, let's say, all these things, and so I know we have a lot of youngsters out there that are starting business, so, or even we have some folks that are retired from a corporation or something, and then they want to go into business. I think there is an important point to create the value, and you have to be passionate about what you do at the same time. So it's very important. Yeah.
Did you pray a lot while doing in your different businesses?
Yeah, this is the thing. Whether you're praying before, you hope it works out, or you're praying afterwards, what I did, hopefully it works out. There's a lot of prayer. You have to have faith. I always believe that you focus on what's in front of you like a car with its headlights, right? We've all heard that. You focus on the light that's in front of you. Sometimes we can worry about stuff we can't see, but do the best you can with what's in front of you. And absolutely, there's a lot of prayer and faith in that what you're doing is centered and you can succeed or do the very best you can. Yeah.
Have you ever felt God guide you to, because you've done a lot of different directions. So, going from music, or in that, you said you've had a lot of experiences as a kid that helped really develop you. And a lot of times it could have been very scary that things could have gone another direction. Was there ever a time in there that there was someone that was a special mentor, or that you could give me a story of where you were able to take the right turn and that God was there for you?
Yeah. I will tell you that many of my moments weren't always at the moment of feeling of, as I said, as a youngster, I probably wasn't connected as much as I should have to God's message and so on. And it was always in hindsight. But I do have a story. So my youngest's mother, before she passed away, we went to the beach, and I was with my oldest daughter and my youngest's mother when she was alive. And they went out swimming. And I had told them, of course, in California, you get riptides and it can be dangerous. So my oldest is a decent swimmer, but Jessica, my youngest mother, who's not around anymore, she's not a great swimmer. So I said, listen, you're not going to go above your waist, and that's that. You can't get into the deep end, and she wasn't really a proficient swimmer. So my wife and I were hanging out on the beach, and the kids are in the water, they're doing their thing, and I'm laying down, and my wife says to me, they're separating. It looks like they're not together. They got caught in a riptide. So I go out swimming. I pass my daughter, who I know. I see Jessica going down, kind of bobbling up and down. She's in trouble. And my daughter, who I know can get by. I always tell, obviously in a riptide, you don't swim towards the shore. you take your time, you know you're in it, you take a deep breath, and you swim parallel.
Yeah,
right?
parallel to the.
So my daughter kind of knew that,
the beach.
but I had to leave one of my kids to go after the other kid that was sinking. She was going under. And so as I was approaching her, she was screaming and she was crying and she was wailing. So I knew, okay, she's got an airway, which is good, because in many occasions, if they're going under and they're frantic, you know what happens. You've got to knock them out, because if not, they're going to take you down.
Oh.
Absolutely.
Okay.
This is a basic tenet in you know, rescue swimming and as a lifeguard. If you have someone that's panicking, which they could, right? They're drowning. They're panicking.
Right, they're panicked.
They can take you down. So that it wasn't as bad of a case. But my point is, I went in, grabbed her, put her in a hold, and brought her back in. And I'm thinking the whole time, my daughter, Victoria, what's going on with my daughter? She made it in okay. After everything was said and done, we were just totally frazzled. I was. Could you imagine? I'm thinking on the way, I cannot have a dead kid. I can't take this kid back in a body bag to her parents. We reflected.
Oh my goodness.
And my daughter, this is the moment, my oldest daughter, I asked her, honey, how did you make it? How did you manage? How was things? How did you do it? And she said, Dad, I was good. I had this white ball following me the whole time.
Really?
Absolutely. And I got to tell you, you know.
And that white ball was probably Jesus right there with her. Or
absolutely.
God in
absolutely.
That.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Because you got to think about this. Here's a riptide. Like, we don't live in the ocean, right? We're not out there every morning surfing and all this kind of stuff. I mean, we're like tourists on the beach. And my daughter's halfway decent swimming, but I had to leave her
to get her friend.
And go get Jessica, who was totally in trouble. She could have easily drowned.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, many would say, okay, where were the lifeguards, this, that, and the other thing. But, we're on a beach. This is the ocean. This is the ocean, you know. And so my point is, after we reflected, my knees were shaking. I mean, through the night and that following day, I asked my daughter, you know, how did you manage this? Because I couldn't get her. And she said, Dad, she was so confident.
Wow.
She was so reassuring. She was like, Dad, I had this white ball that was following me, and I felt okay.
Wow.
Felt okay. And so, like, I think about that.
That's her anchor
get chills.
moment.
I get chills thinking about it. And my thing is, we don't always think, like, we're in the moment. Sure, we're gonna say a prayer and ask to be safe throughout whatever's going to happen.
Right.
But most of us, really, we understand that we have to act in the moment for whatever it is, right? So whether it's that rescue swim, or whether it's a moment in business where we really need to, you know, pull up our pants and really get through it, you know, or we have a relationship issue, right?
Right.
We have to say a quick prayer and get to what we got to get to. We have to act upon what we got to act upon, and that's up to all of us, and it's not always easy. So, but that's that.
Yeah, but it's always easy with prayer when you have that.
And when
have some help.
It was hard for me when we lost Jessica, you know, who's Natalie's mother. It was hard for me to have to deal with that, because I almost lost her out at the ocean, and she had passed later on in life. That's Natalie's biological mother. My daughter, my youngest daughter, who we adopted. So that connection there, you see how that works. It's a journey, man. I always say you got to trust your journey. Trust your journey, and you know, throughout that whole episode of connecting with that, I now have her daughter.
Wow.
I now have her daughter, you know, and so.
And Jessica was the one that you rescued.
That's correct.
And you now
I have her daughter. Jessica's no longer with us. That was many years after that.
Wow.
So,
and now you're taking care of her daughter and adopted her daughter.
Absolutely, yeah. So,
wow. How old was Jessica when you saved her?
She was 17, 18. No, she was 15, 16. She passed when she was 18, 19.
Oh my goodness.
19, 20, in that range.
Right
She
in
had a
that
3-year-old.
range.
Yeah.
And you adopted her daughter.
Yeah. And we, I mean, you don't know.
And
This
so
is
when
why
you
we
when
just
you
don't
when
know
you
what's gonna
when you
happen.
rescued her, she
Yeah.
wasn't a mom yet.
No.
No. So her daughter would have never been born if she had drowned in that ocean.
Oh my goodness.
No, think about that.
Along with
Think
many
about
other
that.
things. I mean, could you
Yeah.
imagine? Yeah. So absolutely, that was a message for me.
Wow,
And
that is a
so,
huge
like, as
anchor
we
moment.
grow,
Yeah.
like, you know, sometimes we are our worst enemy by way of how we don't connect with
And we
faith.
do need to
and
connect.
we don't have hope. Sometimes we're so lost. Like that whole episode could have gone down in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same with the child. I mean, CPS was going to come in and take this kid. And my wife and I mean, you think you have a life plan, right?
Right.
We're going to be empty nesters. We're going to,
Yes.
right? All this kind of stuff. And no, man, you embrace that. And we fought for that, actually. We fought for that. And so, you know, I think to all the fathers and mothers out there, I didn't really grow up with a father, right? So I should have been a statistic, right? I should have been a guy that's been divorced 8 times, and I've been with my wife almost 30 years now.
Yeah.
Right, which is really cool. We
And now
sort
you
of grew up
adopted
together.
dad and
Absolutely.
everything.
Yeah.
And you
So
know what? We
you
just have a
embrace
minute.
it.
We just have a minute left.
Yes.
So we're going to do a super quick prayer.
Yes.
Right now, because I always end my Anchor Moment show with a prayer. And who would you like for us to pray for, and the audience?
Well, I'll tell you who I'd like to pray for. I'd like to pray for our leaders. I'd
Let's
like
do
to
that.
pray for our leaders, both on a macro level throughout the world and on a micro level here in our
Yes.
local communities. We pray for our leaders to have
Let's
the
start it right
humility.
now. God, please help us. Help our leaders, God. Go ahead.
Help our leaders. Give them the humility. Give them the balance. Give them the wisdom and the fortitude to make the best decisions for all people. Give them the strength. Give them the guidance. Give them the ability to listen. Give them the ability to connect with people directly in their community. We thank you, God, for helping our leaders.
Amen.
Amen.
The preceding program was brought to you by the Holy Spirit Broadcasting Network, HSBN Television.